So is your Mac running a little slower than it used to? A lot of times it's not the processor, the memory, or anything else hardware related. It might be something fixable. Let's jump into it and find out. Cause number one, you might have too many menu apps running, and that takes up a lot of resources. These are things like virtual private network, there's cloud sync utilities, we've got clipboard managers, calendar apps, and even converter apps. And they're all basically living in your menu bar. Yeah, up there in the corner over by the time, you've got a bunch of icons up there. Some of them you don't even know what they are. And you might have even gone shopping for a utility to hide some of them, meaning you have another app running to hide other apps that you have running. And yeah, I'm guilty of the same thing. Some of the symptoms you might experience with some of these issues is the fans spin up on your laptop. You've got slow wake-ups when you open up your screen and it just kind of crunches for a minute before it actually allows you to begin working. And you might actually see the stubborn and dreaded beach ball or pinwheel spinning around on your desktop while you're waiting to start to get things done. Now, you actually will collect these apps very honestly. They just kind of build up over time. And when you have a few, it's not a big deal. When you start to have 10, maybe build up 15 or maybe 20 of them, that adds up to a lot of resources dedicated to apps that you're actually not using at the moment. And that can create an unexpected performance hit. One of the best things you can do to try to fix this issue is jump into System Settings, go under General, and then look under Login Items and take a look and take stock of all of the apps that are running there. Deselect the ones you don't need, remove the ones you don't need, and see if that gives a few extra resources back to your Mac to help you get work done. And on a related note, you can actually open up several of the apps that you have running up there, especially in the menu bar, and see whether or not the app settings will allow you to deselect the run at login or start at login. If you really need the app, go ahead, leave that selected. But if it's one of those things where you use it every fifth or sixth time you use your Mac, then chances are you can just start it manually at those times and only take the resources to run the app when you actually need to use them. Another cause for Mac slowdown can be heavy browser usage and maybe bad habits around using those browsers. Keep in mind that every tab you have open is actually a mini app running. That means there's resources dedicated to each one across there. When you have 5, that's kind of normal. When you have 55, that's kind of overkill. Depending upon how the browser is set up, that could take a lot of additional resources, preventing you from working as freely as you want to. And another thing to keep in mind is browser extensions. Every now and then we'll get suggestions to install an extension, and we do it. What can it hurt? You get a bunch of them in there, and it starts taking additional resources every time you fire up the browser. Also, every mini tab actually gets a dedicated link to each of those extensions, requiring that many more resources for each tab. And it's really important to remember that some extensions are resource hogs, and a lot of them are very popular, especially when it comes to coupon apps, or coupon extensions, I should say. What those things do is they are constantly combing the web for all kinds of information. And to be honest, it's actually monitoring your shopping habits to optimize their suggestions to you, but it's also monitoring that to send the data to the extension owner who is probably in turn sending that information to other organizations that buy it from them. Just like the old saying goes, if the product is free, then that means you are probably the product. The first thing you can do to fix the situation is pop into the extension manager in your browser. They're in different places in different browsers. Chrome has it under the settings. Take a look under the extensions that are installed. Take the time for a close examination of all those different extensions and decide whether or not you actually need them. When was the last time you used them? How much utility does it bring to you in your daily workflows? Disable the ones, or maybe even uninstall the ones that you don't need. And another thing that you might want to consider is, since you're using a Mac, consider using Safari. Safari is optimized for the Mac. There's lots of little things that Apple has baked into Safari to help minimize use of resources. And also, if you stop looking at a page that has, say, an animated advertisement or something like that going on in the background, once you click to a different tab, Safari knows to just disable everything on that tab so that it's not using those background resources, and it keeps those resources free, so it optimizes your workflows. By the way, if you're finding this video useful, consider clicking the like button. And if you like videos like this one, go ahead and click subscribe. Another cause for Mac slowdown can be too little available data storage. Yeah, no matter how much unified memory you invested on your Mac, macOS is still going to use some of that data storage space for app caches, swap files, other quick access things. It'll write to that disk to keep unified memory as optimized as it can for the immediate processes of any application. When there is not enough available space on your disk drive for macOS to write those temporary files to, you're going to notice things like apps bouncing up and down in the dock a little longer than they should. You'll also notice little random freezes. And you might notice that startup takes quite a long time. Instead of just a few seconds, it might be closer to 10 or 15 seconds. That might mean you need to take a look at the available space on your disk drive. What you can do is go into System Settings. Under General, you're going to see a spot for storage. Click that and take a look at all the different things that are taking up space. One caveat I'm going to give here is you're likely going to see a significant portion of your drive being taken up by system data. If you've seen some of my previous videos, I actually mentioned that system data is not anything for you to be overly concerned with. It is managed by macOS. It includes a lot of different things in there that can take up a lot of space. But when macOS determines you need the space, it will actually get rid of those items, shrink it down, and make the space available to you. Some quick, easy fixes for clearing up some space on your local drive would be to take a look for large files or large collections of files. If those can be moved to external storage, go ahead and do that. Also, you can take a look at your downloads folder, sort it by date, and pick a time like 3 weeks ago and later than that. Highlight those and delete them. And then after you do that, pop over into your trash can and empty it. That can actually free up far more space than you might think. And then it releases those resources so that Mac gets its breathing room to keep your processes running as optimally as possible. Another cause for slowdowns can be using multiple file sync services. Mac comes with iCloud Drive. For most people, that syncing service is everything you need. Some people also have other services that they use, either OneDrive or Dropbox are two popular ones. If you have OneDrive running and one of those others or both running as well, you have redundancies going on because those services are constantly looking for updates to files so that it can synchronize them. And those processes take up resources. So my recommendation is that if you can go down to one service, then really strongly consider doing that. It just makes your life a little simpler and it frees up those resources to get your work done on your computer. And a quick fix for this sort of situation is just to take those large files, and if you can move them to external storage, go ahead and do so. But make absolutely certain that you back them up. I know I say that all the time in so many of my videos, but it still begs to be said again. Make sure you have backups. The last cause for Mac slowdowns that I'm going to discuss is aged browser profiles. Over the years of using any one browser a lot, it's going to be collecting lots of little bits of information, writing it into the database that it's referencing just to run normal daily tasks for you. But like I said, it kind of builds up what I would call gunk over time. And the best way to get rid of the gunk is to uninstall that browser and reinstall it. That just gets everything nice and fresh. Now, before you just start dragging and dropping that app into the trash, I want you to keep in mind that you're going to need to export your bookmarks. You're going to need to delete the browser at that point. And I would actually suggest using a free app utility, which is still highly reputable, called App Cleaner. And then you can delete the app using that. It will actually make sure that it goes and checks for those little databases that it sprinkles around the operating system to make sure that those things are actually deleted. And remember, these are the things that were slowing your computer and your browser down. So use that sort of app to get things nice and clean. Link down in the description for App Cleaner. Now you can go ahead and reinstall the browser and try not to install all 37 of those extensions again. Be judicious. It'll keep things running that much more optimally, that much longer. Okay, after talking about all the causes of slowdowns on Mac, let's talk about a few things you don't really need to worry about. The first thing, and this might be controversial, you don't need a suite of cleanup tools. You don't need a suite of cleanup tools for your Mac. In fact, some of these tools can actually be monitoring for slowdowns that it actually slows down your Mac. Another thing you don't need, virus scanners. Apple builds in a lot of malware and virus tools that are very potent. Apple doesn't talk about it a lot, but it spends a lot of time and resources to make sure that your Mac is very difficult to infect. And finally, you don't need to do daily reboots. If you've kind of picked that up as a habit from, say, Windows days several years back where, hey, it's just safe to just reboot every day, and you brought that habit into the Mac, you don't really need to do it. For instance, I probably end up rebooting once every 4 to 6 weeks. And to be honest, time just kind of slips by, and then I take a look at the last time I rebooted and I see that it really was 45 days ago. Like, really? That 45 days went pretty quick. So which of these causes matched your experience? Do you have a few tips to share with everybody? Leave a note down in the comment. We'd love to hear about it. Well, thanks for watching till the end. I hope you have a great day, and as usual, be safe, have fun, and keep learning.